Ladies and gentlemen of the Ring Crew Army, welcome to a brand new episode of the Square Circle Podcast. I am your host, Marie Shadows, and we are back today with night one of the new beginning, but this is part 2. So remember in the previous episode, I said that this will be broken up into 2 parts because I didn't want to overwhelm you guys with a lot of wrestling and me breaking down these matches and breaking down the stories. So for night 1, part 2, we will be going over the amazing IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Championship match that featured your champions, Tama Tonga Loa, taking on Zack Sabre Jr. and Taichi, who are the challengers in this match. But before we get into this amazing tag match, I just want to give a shout out to all of my day ones, current, new, and future listeners of the Square Circle Podcast. You guys make this possible. You guys make this happen. Thank you for always listening to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform, streaming service device. And thank you for also either signing up to New Japan Pro Wrestling or thinking to sign up to New Japan Pro Wrestling to follow along when I have my discussions about the matches on the card. Everything I do is because I love it and wrestling is my super passion. And thank you for coming along for the ride, especially wherever you listen from. Thank you so much. I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdowns of the matches and the story and everything else that I do for this podcast. So I don't have any major news to report on New Japan Pro Wrestling at the moment. So why not just get right into this amazing match? So again, I'm going over Tama Tonga Loa, who are our IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Champions and also known as the Gorillas of Destiny from Bullet Club, taking on Zack Sabre Jr. and Taichi. So for weeks, Tama Tonga has been torturing Taichi about his iron fingers, the iron finger gloves that Tama has been hiding from him. And apparently these iron fingers give Taichi a different persona. I don't know too much of this lore, but it's kind of fun seeing Tama Tonga being the comedian. We all know that he's great at talking shit, and we all know that he is a funny guy. It's just that when you get on his bad side, you really don't want to see that. But regardless, we get a very funny Tama Tonga halfway through this match, and then later on him and his brother are such a really good tag team that they really give Zack Sabre Jr. and Taichi a run for their money. And then with Zack Sabre Jr., it's been so long that I've watched a Zack Sabre Jr. match that watching him compete in New Japan Pro Wrestling in this tag team match just reminded me of how great of an athlete he is and how smooth and quick he is with all of his attacks. And there is no time or space wasted in between attacks. And he really gets down to make sure that one move flows onto the next move and onto the next move. And I remember watching him in Ring of Honor, and he was one of the guys that was like, you have to watch him, you have to follow his career. And he's in New Japan, he's doing pretty well for himself. I just don't see him as a tag team guy. I always see him as a singles wrestler, and I see him as being one of the great singles wrestlers that there is, just based on everything that he does in the ring and how he can stretch his opponent a million different ways and do all these cool moves that are so freaking devastating. And one day I will definitely love to see my client, JD Alpha, wrestle Zack Sabre Jr. And obviously I have to root for my client, but I will also be a little afraid because my client is going to come out looking like a pretzel. And I know I'm supposed to hype him up, but it's Zack Sabre Jr. and Zack Sabre Jr. turns people into pretzels, and that's what he does. But Zack Sabre Jr. put on a phenomenal wrestling match against Tonga Loa in this match. And Loa's reaction to the power that Zack Sabre Jr. puts into all of his moves, especially the European uppercuts that he gave Tonga Loa during this match. You can hear Loa in pain. You can hear him cry out and cursing up a storm against Zack Sabre Jr. because of how powerful his attacks were towards him. And just hearing that very clearly, I was just like, that shit had to hurt. His arm definitely had to hurt when Zack Sabre Jr. was focusing on his arm and everything else. That's why I appreciate pure wrestling sometimes. You know, I always say on this podcast that working on the body part is very important and it helps you in the long run, especially if you have a submission move. And when you work on that body part, you're able to weaken it. And then that makes your opponent tap out faster. It's just simple psychology. And of course, Zack Sabre Jr. is one of those guys who is a master at his craft, is a master at mat wrestling, ground wrestling, technical wrestling, whatever you want to call it. Zack Sabre Jr. is definitely a master at that, and he does it like no one else. And he's one of the best in New Japan Pro Wrestling when it comes to that kind of style. So let me go into the match and break this down, but I wanted to give Zack Sabre Jr. a small little spotlight before I do that, just because he is a really great athlete and he works really well with Tonga Loa. I just don't know if Taichi is the best tag partner for him, but I don't know too much of their history, so that's why I can't really give a better assessment of that. But let's just jump into the match. So we start off with Tonga coming down the aisle with a bag full of presents for Taichi. It is not even Christmas. We're in February, you know, and Valentine's is right around the corner. So he might have been thinking ahead of time to bring those presents down. But again, this is playing into the psychology of getting under Taichi's skin because Taichi does not have the iron finger gloves. Tonga has stolen it away just to be funny and stupid and has been torturing him ever since. Tama then throws the bag full of presents into the ring and Taichi automatically goes to it and tries to start looking inside of the bags. Taichi takes the bait, and this allows the Gorillas of Destiny, Tonga and Tonga Loa to take advantage and attack Zack Sabre Jr. and Taichi before the bell. Taichi then does a kick to Tonga, and that's when Taichi is allowed to search the bag. And as he's searching the bags, he finds a loaf of bread, a hand puppet, some other things as well. And then we finally get to the last bag, and Tonga is protecting that last bag. He does not want Taichi to open that bag. So they are on the outside, they're fighting for position, and at one point Tama pushes Taichi into the guardrail and the bag flies over onto the Japanese commentator's desk. And I'm guessing there's a familiar face there that's friends with Taichi because he calls for him and Taichi allows his buddy to open the bag. And when he opens the bag, he pulls out a red push-up bra. That was some pretty funny shit right there. Like, I cracked up at it. I thought it was a clever thing that Tonga did. And too bad Kevin Kelly did not have anyone on commentary with him to kind of say something comedic about it. Like, I don't know, if I was on commentary, I probably would have been like, oh, look, there goes my bra or something. You know, I'm not shy about that kind of stuff. And I thought it was pretty funny that he decided to put a bra inside of a bag to trick Taichi into thinking that it was the iron gloves. But that's Tonga, and that's the kind of humor that I think him and probably Bullet Club has anyway, when they want to be funny about something, when they want to be trolls about something, because as much as Bullet Club is a cohesive unit, they can also be the biggest trolls and troll everyone around them just to get under people's skins and go on from there. And I thought this was a perfect, just a mini funny segment of showing a red push-up bra. by American standards, it would have been labeled as juvenile and stupid, and Tama Tonga would had every name thrown at him from women who probably would have never liked that spot. But guess what? Me being a female podcaster talking about professional wrestling, I have no problem with that. That was a really funny segment of putting a red bra in there. So Tama Tonga has my approval. He's not going to get any name called by me because he is such a amazing wrestler, probably a fantastic guy as well. So I appreciate his work, and that was just comedy, and I can take a joke, and it's all good. It is all good. I just think that Tama in the back was like, this is going to be clever, and it was definitely a clever move. So after the comedy spot was revealed, Taichi decides to choke Tama, and then Loa comes in to save Tama from that. Loa starts fighting with Zack Sabre Jr., and then Tama Tonga chops Taichi's chest and then suplex Taichi as well. There are 2 sentons done by Tama and Loa, and then a series of elbows from Loa to Taichi. The Gorillas of Destiny are keeping Taichi in their corner, away from Zack Sabre Jr. There's a dropkick by Tama Tonga to Taichi. Taichi then tries to get some kicks into Tama, but Tama ends up giving Taichi a high jumping kick and then tags out to Loa. Loa then sends Taichi into the corner. Taichi does an elbow and a kick to Loa to create some type of distance, some type of separation between the two. Taichi then does a sidestep when Loa comes after him and does a step up enziguri. This allows him to go over to his tag team partner, Zack Sabre Jr., and give him the tag. Zack Sabre Jr. is fresh. He comes in with a hot combo of European uppercuts, and Loa stops at least one of them with a palm strike to Zack Sabre Jr. There's more European uppercuts, a powerful forearm from Zack Sabre Jr. to Loa. And this is where you hear Loa in clear as day that those stiff shots that Zack Sabre Jr. is giving to him actually hurt, and they're very powerful. Then Zack Sabre Jr. does a series of kicks, like a bicycle kick to Loa's right arm, and then a soccer kick to Loa's left arm. And then Zack Sabre Jr. starts working on Loa's left arm so that way he can apply the armbar. Zack Sabre Jr. then does a neck crank to Tama Tonga. Tama Tonga is clearly in pain. You can also hear that on the camera as well, and he rolls out of the ring. There's stiff kicks to Loa's chest, and Zack Sabre Jr. still stomps on Loa's triceps while Loa holds the rope. There is no rope break, even if the referee tells Zack Sabre Jr. to let him go. Zack Sabre Jr. is like, fuck this, I'm still going to do it. Zack Sabre Jr. has a hold on Tonga Loa's arm, and Loa finally breaks free from that with overhead shots and gives him a forearm to create some type of separation. However, Zack comes back quickly with 2 kicks to Loa, and Loa manages to get a spear in again to create some type of space between the two, because if not, Zack Sabre Jr. is definitely going to destroy Loa's arm further, and that's going to hinder his ability to help out on the next night when we have the 6-man never openweight tag team championship match then. But Tonga Loa is such a warrior that he's going to power through the rest of the match. So Tama Tonga comes in with shots. This is without a tag. There is a neck breaker by Tama to Zack Sabre Jr., and then once again the Gorillas of Destiny are back up on their feet attacking Zack Sabre Jr. They have him in the position for the Magic Killer. However, Zack Sabre Jr. kicks Loa away and then soccer kicks Tama's arm. There is a running charge to Zack Sabre Jr. in the corner. Loa then goes for an attempted back body powerbomb. However, Zack Sabre Jr. counters that into the guillotine choke. Taichi comes in with a submission move of his own onto Tama Tonga. There manages to be a rope break, so both men release the guys from their submissions. Zack Sabre Jr. and Taichi now attack Loa. Again, Zack Sabre Jr. with the kicks to Tonga Loa, and Loa manages to do a jackhammer to Zack Sabre Jr. Taichi is choking Tama Tonga over in the corner and then hits him with a strong clothesline. There's kicks to Tama's head, to his midsection, more kicks, and this brings Tama Tonga down onto the mat. But then Tama Tonga comes back with the Tonga twist to Taichi. At this point, Tama Tonga is like, fuck these guys. Taichi then slips out of the gun stun. Tama catches Taichi's leg, spins him around for another attempt for the gun stun. Taichi counters with Dangerous T, which is just a side suplex. Taichi then goes for the cover, but Tama Tonga kicks out. Loa enters the ring and does a running power slam to Taichi. Zack Sabre Jr. tries to save Taichi. He jumps on Loa's back, but Tama and Loa get Zack Sabre Jr. into the guerrilla warfare move. Then a double team net breaker on Taichi. Taichi counters with a suplex on Tama Tonga. Tama and Loa were going to do the super power bomb, but that got voided. There is a leg kick, leg sweep, a kick in the head to Loa, some more European uppercuts with forearms to Tama. Then both Zack Sabre Jr. and Taichi do their finisher. It's called the Zack Mephisto. This is the first time that I'm seeing this move done, so I don't know too much about the history or even know how to pronounce it right, except for the word and name of Zack. So at this point, Taichi gets the cover pin over Tama Tonga, and we all thought that was going to be the end of the match and we'll have new tag team champions. However, that's not the case. Loa comes in and pulls the referee out, and the power that Loa has this referee hit his head against the barricade. Now we get a test of strength between Loa and Taichi with a bunch of clothesline. And then 2 kicks take down Loa, and all members of both teams are down. Coming down the ramp is G.O.D. G.O.D comes in with the Iron Fingers and he screams towards Tama Tonga, and Tama stirs and gets the Iron Fingers. He puts them on and he starts jesting in the ring, and Taichi sees this. However, Doki comes in to try to save the day, and Tama uses the Iron Fingers on Doki first. Doki rolls out to the ringside area, and then Taichi stirs and kicks the Iron Finger gloves off of Tama Tonga. And Taichi goes over to the Iron Fingers, puts it on, and now he is a completely different person. Zack Sabre Jr. comes in to hold Tama Tonga down and yells for Taichi to hit Tama Tonga, but the referee finally stirs and gets into the ring and stops Taichi from using the Iron Fingers. Taichi does not want to listen. Taichi pushes the referee down into the corner and uses the Iron Fingers onto Tama Tonga. This causes a disqualification. So the challengers of this match, Zack Sabre Jr. and Taichi, have lost the match due to that interference of the iron gloves. And then Taichi turns around to strike the referee as well and starts going crazy. And he finally got the Iron Fingers, and the Guerrillas of Destiny retain their IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Championships because of this. At this point, they finally calm down Taichi and remove the Iron Fingers from him and put it in the bag, and he becomes back to normal. This loss probably bothers Zack Sabre Jr. a little bit in the head, but he was happy that Taichi got the Iron Fingers back. And just imagine, this whole entire time, the story was, where are the Iron Fingers? What has Tama Tonga done with them? You know, it's such a silly, simple storyline, but it got under Taichi's skin so much that he allowed the essence of the Iron Fingers to take over him and just hit everybody with it and cause a disqualification. And all this work to build up to this climax only to lose it all because all you ever wanted was the Iron Fingers back, which brings me into the post-match comments from both the Guerrillas of Destiny and Zack Sabre Jr. So let's start with the Guerrillas of Destiny first. Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa are two of the best in-ring competitors as a tag team. And just by watching this match and seeing the level of intensity mixed in with comedy, mixed in with amazing wrestling ability is really refreshing and really nice. And they obviously take this industry very serious. You know, they're from the Samoan dynasty and they have like a huge ass legacy to live up to, and they're doing really great with it. And during the post comments, Tangaloa has such a deep intensity that sometimes you think that he might end up being the quiet one all the time, just because Tama Tonga is out there always talking shit to people, and Tama Tonga really doesn't shut up. So, you know, the dynamic of them playing off each other is really great. And that's a really good aspect to have in a tag team, because you might be focused on Tama and you might think that Tama is the biggest threat you ever came across. But the real threat is to look out for Loa, because Loa is the quiet one, in a sense, in a way. And if I'm totally wrong and you guys are hearing this, you guys can definitely let me know what's wrong. But that's how they come off as. However, in this post-match comments, Loa was really upset. And Loa was reminding Taichi and Zack Sabre Jr. that we fight for titles. They fight for the championships. That's why they are still the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Champions. And because Taichi was so focused on the Iron Fingers, that he lost focus in what he wanted to achieve. Because obviously Zack Sabre Jr. wants to become tag team champions. So therefore there's one goal, but one person didn't have that one goal. The other one was focused on Iron Fingers versus Zack Sabre Jr. focused on the championships. So Loa gave a very convincing explanation of that both him and his brother fight for championship titles and not stupid things like Iron Fingers. And there's just a really nice dynamic between the two, which I highly appreciate. So Loa was definitely 100% right. Now, discussing Zack Sabre Jr. comments, Zack doesn't know what to do. He thinks he might want to go ahead as a singles competitor because he's always been a singles competitor. Him trying out the tag team division was just, I guess, something to do. He's great all around, so, you know, he shouldn't really limit himself to just being a singles competitor, and might want to add some tag team gold to his resume, which is completely great. You can hear how unsure he is of his future when it comes to being a tag team partner with Taichi, and he's extremely happy that Taichi got the Iron Fingers back. But I think Zack Sabre Jr. at the end of the day wanted those IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Championships. Both Zack Sabre Jr. and Taichi have been building the story up alongside the Guerrillas of Destiny, while the Guerrillas of Destiny are tag teaming with Jay White to antagonize the Never Openweight 6-man tag team champions. So they're doing double duty, but this story basically comes to a crashing halt because Taichi got the Iron Fingers back. Zack Sabre Jr. may want to go as a singles competitor, and then the Guerrillas of Destiny can focus full time on trying to take the other belts away from the other guys. It's all good. Eventually, Zack Sabre Jr. did say that he may come back to try to get those tag team championship belts off of Guerrillas of Destiny. We'll see when the future gets here. We'll see what happens. But currently, right now, the Guerrillas of Destiny, Tama Tonga, Tangaloa are still our IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Champions. And that match is definitely going down as a really good match for the month of February. February has definitely been giving us really good matchups. And I like to always take a moment to be like, yep, that match was really good in this month and that month. And that's what I will be doing. I was thinking of putting a podcast episode together to talk about the greatest matches every 3 months. And this tag team match is definitely going to be one of them for the month of February. Not exactly sure how it's going to play out, but that's what I'm thinking of doing. So New Japan Pro Wrestling delivers on their performances and their stories. Even if you are not fluent in Japanese or don't know Japanese, you guys can definitely turn on the closed captioning option whenever they upload videos to their YouTube channel. So that way you could get a little bit more familiar with the storylines and get the gist of it just because you want to follow what happens. Like I said, I tried the best that I can to bring you the storylines and to bring it to life and to keep kayfabe alive. New Japan Pro Wrestling is probably the only business around that keeps kayfabe alive. AEW does it too, but then sometimes it might get pushed. It might get pulled back only because, you know, people have vlogs and stuff to do, and sometimes it kind of destroys the character in a sense. But I'm really happy that New Japan Pro Wrestling provides kayfabe and provides me with challenges, so that way I can deep dive into the psyche of some of these guys and some of the moves and the stories inside the ring. And that's what makes me super happy whenever I do these podcast episodes. I like breaking down stuff and just picking the puzzle apart rather than putting the puzzle back together. And if I need to put the puzzle back together, that means that I have completed the story and there's no more threads to tie up. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is my assessment of one of the greatest matches I've ever watched in the month of February. Like I said, the Guerrillas of Destiny still retain their IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Championships. And if you guys enjoyed this episode, please make sure to drop me some love. You can find me on social media. I am very active on Twitter at Marie_Shadows. You can leave a voice message on the Anchor app, which is anchor.fm/Square Circle Podcast. And if you're a listener on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, you could definitely search for Squared Circle Podcast. It will pop up. Thank you for listening on all kinds of platforms. I highly appreciate it. Like I said, I love what I do. And if you guys want to take it a step further, I do write wrestling articles. I have an article up about Jay White, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks. Head over to theringcrew.substack.com. The next episode on the Square Circle Podcast, we'll be talking about night 2 of The New Beginning. This will include the 6-man never open weight tag team championship that includes Jay White, Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa taking on Ishii, Goto, and Yoshihashi. And after that podcast would be AEW Dynamite. So, ladies and gentlemen, strap in, come along for the ride. I have a lot more wrestling content to give you guys, and just keep on showing me love. You have been listening to the Square Circle Podcast. I am your host, Marie Shadows, and I'll see you guys in the next one.